Good afternoon and welcome to the Wavy Digital Desk. I'm your host, Sarah Good. Today we're going to be talking about Endangered Species Day. It's tomorrow. It's celebrated nationally to bring awareness to endangered species, both near and far. Now, you might be surprised, but there's over 16,000 endangered species globally. Some of those we have right in our own backyard in Virginia Beach at the Virginia Aquarium and Marine Science Center. So today we're going to be talking a little bit more about what you can expect tomorrow in terms of the day, but also what activities and what learning is going to be happening at the Virginia Aquarium. Now we have Max Wright, an educator and community engagement coordinator, with us to share more about what you can expect tomorrow and a little bit of that education piece as well. Max, good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. So, I think people down here are familiar with the Virginia Aquarium. You all do a lot of work from just new exhibits opening up, obviously animal care, and then also education. In terms of tomorrow, and you all do have obviously some endangered species on site, can you just tell us a little bit about what Endangered Species Day is and what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So Endangered Species Day is actually a fairly new holiday, believe it or not. It was started in 2006, and it's celebrated every third Friday of May, or the third Friday in May. And so that is tomorrow for us. And so at the aquarium, we are celebrating in our north building only, and it's going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we have a lot of fun stuff planned in that time. So guests can expect a scavenger hunt. There will be a wonderful matching game, which will allow them to learn about the different designations that animals can have. Because the animals aren't just they're not always kind of classified as endangered. And we will also have a really awesome Plinko game where you'll have the chance to win a nice little card here.
And we'll talk about some of those animals in a second too.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the animals that we're going to be highlighting is our Komodo dragon on this card. He is one of our endangered species. We're also going to be highlighting our zebra sharks. We're going to be talking about our hellbenders because all those animals are endangered, believe it or not. And we do have them on site, and you'll be able to experience them and check them out that day.
Absolutely, and I'm just going to play some video right now just so people watching, you can see. Right now there's some general B-roll. If you haven't been to the aquarium, these are just some shots that you'll be able to see as you walk through the exhibits. But what's coming are some photos actually of some of the animals or species I should say, that are endangered. And I say that because, you also have photos not only of animals, but there's also photos of, coral, for example, I think was one of the things on there, or some of those things that live in our seas that maybe we don't think about, which I thought was very interesting as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can fast forward to it when the photos come over. What I want to specify too is, what does endangered mean? I think people get confused with endangered, threatened, critically endangered. Can you talk a little bit about what the differences are or how you all categorize them?
Yeah, so species are classified on a spectrum all the way going from data deficient all the way to extinct. And so as they're classified, it's based off of how close that population is to getting to extinction within its natural range. So an animal isn't always going to be classified as endangered. It's possible for it to be classified at least concerned because in its natural range there is no worries about the population, but then it'll bump up to vulnerable, then we have threatened or near threatened, then we have threatened, then we have endangered, critically endangered, extinct in the wild, and then just extinct. So each of those, as it goes further, it just means that there's less and less of that population in its natural range.
And I think that's scary too, because, when it's actually going towards extinction in its natural range, that does obviously makes it difficult for people to sort of maybe understand or be able to sort of mitigate, I guess, that threat in the wild. And I know that you all have some endangered species right in your doors. We're seeing some photos here, obviously, of some of them. This might be a good time, and I can replay some of these photos to talk about some of these animals, to start. And I think it's so sweet that we have them named. I think the trading cards also give, adoption day, birthday. They talk about where they're from. So it really familiarizes guests, with the actual animal that they're going to see tomorrow, what to expect. But do you want to talk a little bit about, what those animals are on the cards?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have four unique cards that we have for the day. We are highlighting Taman, our Komodo dragon, Ralph, who is our Temistoma. We have Mina, our zebra shark. She's actually featured right there. She was the one swimming just a moment ago. And then we have Penny, our Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. So we chose all four of those animals because they are very charismatic megafauna that are very visible in the aquarium. And in their natural ranges, they are all experiencing some kind of threat to their populations. We tried to pick ones that were all endangered, but the Temistoma actually is not endangered, believe it or not. It is vulnerable, which is not great, but so yeah.
No, but it's good to know too because, the levels of it obviously are super important. We don't want to have to catch everything at the endangered level. We'd like to obviously have some help or recovery, before it reaches that. And I know that, sea turtles, sharks, as you mentioned, those are in our waterways and those are around us. So I think it's interesting too to be able to see things that we'd see in the wild and also be able to know how protected they are or how to be careful with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also really important for us just to be aware that like these animals, while they seem very far away from us, they play a critical role in our everyday lives by helping maintain biodiversity within our ecosystem. Without these animals being present in their environments, doing what they're doing, following their niches and everything, it's hard for us to continue and maintain our stability. It impacts everything from our ability to gather more food or ecotourism, for instance. So yeah, it's really important for us to be aware of these different animals and their designations and how protected or not they are, so that we can get them to a point where they are and our biodiversity is better.
Absolutely. And I think it's so key, what you're saying, that they seem far away, but they're not. And that's so interesting. And you hear that too, obviously, being so close to the waterways as we are, even talking about the Chesapeake Bay and making sure, A, it's clean for the animals, but also, they're doing a lot of oyster restoration right now and all that stuff. So all of it plays a really critical part. The other thing about the work that you all do is it doesn't just stop at the education piece, but you have things like the stranding team, obviously, that go out, that actually assist some of these animals. I'm thinking specifically, there's a lot of incidents, obviously, of turtles where that's really critical. Can you talk a little bit about the stranding team and their help?
Absolutely. They play a really big role in helping out endangered species because the animals they directly help, which are marine mammals and sea turtles, a majority of those species are classified as either threatened or endangered. In fact, if you didn't know, 6 of the 7 species of sea turtle across the world are considered threatened or endangered. So the stranding response team plays a really big role by either helping out those animals who just need to be rehabilitated and sending them back out into the wild, of course, but also by learning a bit about those animals who may have unfortunately passed away through necropsies and things of that nature, to understand what happened to them. So the rest of those individuals in that population, we could do something about that so that they're maybe not impacted by that same thing that hurt that animal.
Right, and I imagine that part is critical, in terms of if maybe they have an illness in the waters, maybe something is spreading.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, the stranding response team is a really, really big key player in what we do for helping out endangered species. But that's not the only thing that we do in terms of helping out endangered species. We have some other conservation programs that we work on. One that is fairly familiar to folks is our species survival plans. And those are basically breeding plans that have been approved by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, the AZA, which we are accredited by. And they are meant to create a genetically diverse population of those animals while they are under human care. So that's another really good way that we do that. Our Komodo dragons are part of that program, and then our Lake Victoria cichlids are also in that program as well. And then we have things like we're part of the Sea Core Coral Restoration Project. We're part of the Temistoma Task Force as well. We're part of the STAR Zebra Shark Project. So we do a lot of different. We're part of a lot of different conservation programs to help all these various different species, even species that aren't necessarily in our building.
Right, and maybe that's even more critical because you're not really interacting with them or hearing about them as much. So to be able to, come very close to a Komodo dragon to learn more about their behaviors and everything, I think that's so interesting to be able to have that here. And honestly, that's probably a special piece of the aquarium, being able to bring in different species, whether it's fish, sharks, or whatnot, that you're not going to see in our waterways.
Yeah, and that's the beauty and the magic of the aquarium, the fact
Right.
that we are able to bring that to folks and let them get up close and personal to these animals that they otherwise wouldn't see, so they can make that connection and understand how, while I may not see a Komodo dragon every single day, it is still really valuable that we take care of these animals, and that their populations are maintained. And they get that knowledge and that spark from being in our building, from interacting with our staff.
Right. Some of those kids tomorrow, or hey, people of all ages coming in, maybe having that spark to either become an educator or learn more about that, to study that. I mean, those are the things that we need that I think you get from these opportunities.
Absolutely. And one thing I'm actually really excited to talk about during Endangered Species Day is the top things that cause species to become endangered. And the top two that I found through my own research was um, the habitat loss
Mm.
and overharvesting of the animals. So in the habitat loss, that's typically done for human development. So that's whether that is for farming purposes or to create more housing and homes. And so we actually have an activity tomorrow that we're going to be using to talk about carrying capacity and habitat loss, and how when we encroach on these habitats for our own sake, we are reducing the carrying capacity of these ecosystems to maintain those populations, leading to those populations to become endangered.
Right, because if they don't have obviously that ground for them to grow, to nurture, to spread, they're not going to be able to survive.
Exactly. Yeah. If there's not enough resources to maintain all these individuals, yeah, the population is not going to go move forward. So I'm really excited to chat with people about that, and give them a peek into what that reality is. And then the other one I mentioned, over harvesting, that's a really big issue as well. So of course we harvest a lot of animals for our consumption and whatnot, but oftentimes we will harvest animals for the pet trade too, and that's a really really big piece of the issue right now for a lot of endangered fish, especially. So I'm interested to see what people's thoughts are about that, and to talk a little bit more with them, and share that information.
Right, and I think that's so interesting because it's not just awareness about what animals are endangered, but really what maybe the problems are in order to solve those.
Absolutely, exactly. Because if we don't know what is causing them to become this way, it's nice to know whether or not an animal is endangered, but if we don't know the reason why, and then come up with a solution to fix it, then what's the point?
And just a fact that I was, reading and going into this conversation is, there's constantly this addition to the endangered species list that I think it's interesting. I think, in the last few years, and I know it depends regionally, but I think the U.S. tried to add maybe even 2,000 species, whatever that might mean, to the threatened slash endangered list. And, climate change and global warming, I think, we really don't know what exactly is going to play a part with everything. But again, to your point, I think it's interesting to see what the cause or issue is at hand, and see if there's ways, obviously, for scientists around the world to figure that out.
Yeah, yeah. And then for us as individuals to come together once we have that information, and do something
Mm.
about that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the ideas, because one of the things I love to do during these holidays that we celebrate at the aquarium is to ask the kids, so what do you think the solution is? What would you do if you were the scientist in this situation? So I'm really excited to see all the inspiring, interesting, different things that I know the kids are going to have to share with us. So.
No, that would
Yeah.
be great, and I can't wait to hear about some of those. And kids have creative minds, so who knows what's going to come out tomorrow. One comment I just wanted to share from Facebook is they're talking about Atlantic sturgeon are federally endangered species too, and they're right in our fresh and salt water. So I think it's interesting, and obviously that education hopefully continues. So thank you for putting that in the chat. But I just think it's great that what you guys are doing tomorrow. Obviously, it's a part of your mission at the Virginia Aquarium to sort of showcase this and highlight these animals. There's other conversations I've had from sharks to sea turtles, that with the aquarium that I think are really important for education. I know sea turtles too, they are endangered. I'm glad that they're so talked about, but and I think even in the Outer Banks this year in North Carolina, they had a huge sort of year for nesting and for things. But once they're in the water, and they're fending for themselves, like so many of these animals, I guess that's where the problems can lie, right? When they're away from the aquarium, when they're away from the ocean. So I think it's good to keep an eye on everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have to do that for sure. Yeah.
Well, is there anything about tomorrow or in terms of education that you'd like people to know about? I mean, obviously people can go tomorrow, they can go other days as well and learn more from educators like yourself and ask questions. But is there anything you want people to know that, about showing up tomorrow or coming to the museum this summer?
Well, yes. So, I think I mentioned a moment ago, we celebrate these environmental holidays on a monthly basis. So, each month there is a holiday that we are trying to highlight. And if you go onto our website and you check out our daily events page, you'll be able to see some of those holidays. So, for instance, the next one that's coming up is World Otter Day, and that's happening later this month on the 29th. And then we'll be celebrating World Ocean Day in June. So yeah, if you come and check out the calendar, then you'll be able to see all those really awesome activities. But in regards for tomorrow in particular, I'm really excited about the trading cards. Really excited. But I do want to let people know the quantities are limited. So if you want one, you got to show up early because when they're gone, they're gone.
And they're really special. And I think, again, just to say, the information on them I think is really special. There's also favorite snacks, keeper notes on them, fun facts. So you guys really will get a feel for the animals, from the actual people that take care of them, which I think is such a unique and special way to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then other thing I wanted to say is that you all don't just have events strictly for kids. Obviously, the whole family is involved, and you guys have, I think, is it Sharks After Dark, and you have some of these events meant for the older, maybe evening crowd as well.
Yes, we have a lot of wonderful special events, Sharks After Dark being one of them, and that is for a 21 plus audience. So if you are looking for a nice quiet evening at the aquarium, maybe you can grab a date and come on by. We do that the first Thursday of each month. We also have our family evenings on a quarterly basis, and our next one is coming up next month as well. And that's going to be Pride theme. I'm really excited about that. We have our sensory friendly mornings on Saturdays, every second Saturday of the month. And then stay tuned because fantasy is coming really soon. That's one of our special events. If you missed mermaids, come out for fantasy.
Well, Max, thank you so much for, being here today and telling us about all the programming coming up for the aquarium. There's so much going on there. Obviously, you all do things year round, and your different groups for conservation efforts are working around the clock, I know, whether it's the stranding team or the teams at the aquarium. But is there anything else you want to add, or thank you so much for being here today?
No, I think we covered everything.
That's
Thank you for
great. Well,
having me today.
absolutely. And if you're watching this now, please go over to the link. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, it's going to go to wavy.com. It's going to connect you right to what's happening tomorrow. Learn more about endangered species, learn more about what's happening, and connect with the aquarium for future events. So thanks so much. And thanks so much to everyone for joining us. Be able to share this on Facebook and YouTube, or if you're on wavy.com, take a look at maybe some other stories we've done with the aquarium. There's a lot of features even of some of these endangered species when they were adopted and even came to the aquarium, which is really fun. So Max, thanks so much again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Have a great one.
You too.